are at the Administrative Leadership Summit, which is the first of its kind. And tell me why that came about and why you and Doug took such a leadership role in making it happen.
Certainly. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. So as you know, MASA and MoASBO are two large professional associations in the state of Missouri. And we have a lot of overlap in membership. And in the past, we both held fall conferences. And sometime last spring, we got together and said, what if we joined forces and had one conference? It would do a couple of things. First of all, it would keep people from being out of the building or their district twice, or having to choose which one to go to. And then secondly, it offered us the opportunity to provide a more extensive selection of breakout sessions. And I think we've achieved both of those objectives. So it's been a great way to bring people together and not force them into making a choice about which conference to go to, and they've got expanded learning opportunities.
Well, great. I know we have coming up later today some of those same speakers here on Issues in Education sharing some of those viewpoints. So let me ask, every student succeeds. What is that all about? Because I've been so used to hearing its predecessor, every student succeeds, or every
No Child Left Behind.
That's
right.
No Child Left Behind.
It's hard to keep up with all of
It really
those.
is, because a lot of districts were not happy with the No Child Left Behind.
Correct.
There wasn't any funds that went with that and some other reasons. So why is this program so successful?
So probably a little bit of background with No Child Left Behind, which the acronym we said NICLB. There was a huge emphasis on testing and those numbers. And as you and I know, as parents, that's not always reflective of how students are growing and learning.
Right.
So it has been replaced with ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act. And from my standpoint, some of the things that are key about that have to do with a financial transparency piece and then more of the community parent engagement. So with Every Student Succeeds, obviously there's still an emphasis on student achievement because that's what we want for our children. We want them to grow and learn and develop. But there's also this piece that says, as a taxpayer, as someone who is funding education, you should be able to see how those dollars are being spent at a building level. In the past, all of those numbers were reported at the district level. So take X school district that has 5 buildings. In the past, the information was at the X school district level. Now with ESSA, we want school building 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to report that data so that we know how individual students are doing across the district, not just in general.
What are some of the items that are measured in terms of their continued growth and skills?
So it looks at a variety of things. Obviously, we're interested in growth as opposed to here's a line, did I meet it? We're looking at if you started here, are you growing and developing? And I think that's what's important. With this data, which comes down to lots of different accounting codes and changing how information's being reported, districts can look at their strategic plans and say, we need to be focusing more efforts here because we know these students are needing these types of assistances or resources. And so that's how that information hopefully will be used, is in some of that strategic planning.
You think this program will be in existence for enough years that you can really track these students? Or you'll get 3 or 4 years down the road and then they change the program?
That's always the danger. If I had a crystal ball, that would be wonderful. But as you know, unfortunately, a lot of this is related to politics and to whomever is in office at the time and what that Secretary of the Department of Education wants to do. I can tell you that right now, that is what we're looking at, is the ESSA requirements, and that's what our folks are focused on, and making sure not only are we compliant, which is what my message is let's move beyond the mandate. We obviously want to be compliant. We want Missouri to have accurate numbers, because one of the things that they want us to be able to do is to compare states to states, but make it more apples to apples. We'll see how that works. And I'm hopeful that it doesn't get changed dramatically within the next few years, but I would certainly never make that prediction.
Well, it sounds like it's a great program, and it's just underway.
Yes, and
It's
a
got
lot of
at least
work.
2, maybe 6 years to go.
We hope so.
We hope so. Very good.
Yes.
Well, part of the other important issue in this program that you have at the lake is parent engagement. And I hear, you know, in the number of board meetings that I attend, how important parent engagement is. Hopefully at the school level, not when they come to the board meeting.
Right, right.
Different type of engagement when they come to the board meeting.
Yes, typically.
But how does the whole parent engagement, how comprehensive is that, and is that something that's measurable? Just talk about it a little bit.
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, there's a large body of research that indicates the higher the level of parent engagement, the higher the level of student achievement. And when we talk about parent engagement, that can take on many, many forms. I think, unfortunately, a lot of us tend to put it in a category, I'm involved in the PTA, or I serve on a
Right,
booster club,
right.
which those are wonderful ways to be engaged. Those aren't the only ways. We also know that for a number of parents, their work schedule prohibits them from maybe doing some of those things.
Right.
So then you think about, what does that mean? So it can take the form of something like going to the polls and voting to support your school district if you have a ballot initiative, reading to your child at night, making sure your child has some of those opportunities before and after school, maybe through your school district or one of your community groups. A lot of libraries provide before or after school types of programs. So I think the key is not to limit the definition of parent engagement. Parent engagement is so much broader than what we have typically thought of it as being. And I know from our standpoint, we want parents actively involved and engaged in their child's learning. So if you can't attend a particular parent-teacher conference, you make an arrangement to do something over the phone. We work with our teachers to have ongoing communication, which is one of the great benefits of the technology we have today.
Absolutely.
You can do emails, you can do text messages. A lot of teachers do online e-newsletters to keep parents informed and engaged, and they're great two-way communication tools also. So when we talk about parent engagement, it's not only having the information about what's going on in your child's school, but playing an appropriate active role to support what's going on in your child's school.
You know, since technology has really advanced much quicker than some of the skills of parents have advanced, how do parents really work with their child at home when the child is so much more advanced in the use of the tools, different platforms? It looks like the parenting role has switched, that the students are now helping the parent.
So I have 5 grandchildren. 4 of them, 3 of them, are already using iPhones, iPads, tablets. They have to teach me what to do with them. It's amazing, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
like they are born knowing how to use all of these different devices that I'm still trying to figure
Yes.
out. So I think what's important as a parent is, number one, you monitor what your
Monitor.
child is doing. That's absolutely essential, that you monitor your child's use of those devices, particularly social media, even some of the games. Make sure you're monitoring it. Secondly, you set a good example. If you're telling your child you need to be able to engage in a face-to-face conversation, have eye contact, then you're going to have to put your phone down and do
Yes.
the same thing. So I think you need to model that behavior. Thirdly, I think you join them in the learning and you see what's available for your child. And if your child is using e-books instead of bringing home a textbook, then you may have to look at that device and see what that different book is, or if they're doing all of their research for a PowerPoint presentation, which is happening in elementary schools now. Saying, okay, how are you doing that? Talk to your child. I think that's the most important thing. And then I think some of us are probably going to have to do our own learning. I don't know that I'll ever catch up with my grandchildren, but I like to sit down with them and have them explain to me what they're doing on their tablet or device and teach me a little bit so that I can have that conversation, because it's a great learning tool. You can be in central Missouri and have a conversation with someone around the world and see what's going on in that classroom. I mean, it's just like it's limitless, the opportunities to our kids now.
What, with this program, trying to engage parents, I'm sure you've had some real difficulties with certain families.
That family unit is, I think, first, that's where you start, is that base level. But then to your point of how do we as families stay involved and engaged with our kids, I think first of all we have to look at ourselves. We're all very busy. I think it has to be a priority where maybe we can't sit down at the dinner table every night. I know for a lot of us that would be a goal, and even research says that's a good thing to do. Maybe it's the conversation we have in the car on the way to school or on the way to an activity when I've picked up my child. Maybe it's in between an activity, or maybe we're watching something on television together. But I think it's something that has to be deliberate. I think it has to be something that you persevere in doing, and it has to be a priority. So the consistency, the saying I'm going to keep doing this, and saying this is a priority in my life, because if you don't, things happen that can cause danger. To your question, we know that there are, for all of the good that technology and social media provides, there's also a very dark side.
Yeah,
and
very
so
much.
making sure that even though my middle school teenager doesn't want me to know who they're talking with or chatting with, as a parent, I need to have some control over that, because they're not aware of what they can get themselves into. They're adults who get into some really bad situations too. So I think to your point, you've got to be careful, you have to watch, you have to be explaining to them why this is so important. I just had a conversation with a wonderful middle school parent, and he was telling me some of the struggles with his daughter, and I said, so are you the meanest dad in the world? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, well, good for you.
It's a good thing.
For you. And you know, that's okay. That's okay. I can be mean when I'm saying, right now you can only be on these sites, or right now we're going to put the device down and we're going to have some conversation, or maybe you don't get to have a particular program or platform, but that's just where we are.
Well, so many times, you know, students grow up as part of their peer group and not close to their parents. And sounds like what this program is all about is making everybody aware of the importance of parent engagement, and it might help a few that would otherwise not been engaged because the students don't want them engaged.
Oh no, that time period when they hit those teenage years, which is part of the developmental process. It's the same thing when they're 2, when they don't want you holding their hand, when they're trying to walk and do things. It's frustrating as a parent, but that is part of it. We all want to become our own independent person. And so I think at a school level, we have programs to help parents to learn some of those developmental stages. We support each other. And I think it's important that we do stay engaged at whatever that level means for me. It may be different for you. You may be able to serve on all kinds of boards and committees and do those types of things. I may not be able to do that, but that doesn't mean I can't be just as engaged and involved and informed. It may just look different.